Let's get some game theory. Yes, there will be some math. Cynthia Freeland back with me live on NFL Now. Hi, Cynthia. I went to Syracuse, so we often dealt with wind shear because it was freezing every day for like 9 months. You came up with something called Win Share. What's that?
So in baseball, a lot of the analytics people would call it WAR, or wins above replacement. For basketball, player efficiency rating. It's just a metric that allows us to compare like things, apples to apples comparisons of quarterbacks, of running backs, etc. And so you can see how many wins each player is responsible for. You can stack them up. You can rank them. You can look at them relative to each other. Of course, quarterbacks have the highest win share. It's the most valuable position in any sport. And then it kind of filters on down there. So you really should look at the relative rankings per position, and it just gives you a good idea of who's super valuable and who's driving the most wins for their team.
All right, let's look at offensive players, as it says here, non-quarterbacks. Tell me about Dalvin Cook.
So Dalvin Cook comes in at number 5. Running backs, especially running backs with pass catching upside, kind of similar to your fantasy team, have a lot of value, especially on a team like the Vikings that relies on the run or efficiency from those short passes that effectively operate like a run game. So 1.92 wins, that is a very nice number for Dalvin Cook. That's what drives him being your number 2 overall fantasy pick.
Right,
and then I got number 4 for you if you want.
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, this one's the one and only wide receiver that I want to talk about in the top 5. It's Davante Adams, in part because he has such a high target share. And if you look to see, oh my God, I just lied to you. We go Derrick Henry first, and then we go Davante Adams. They gave it away. So Derrick Henry, obviously, for the same reason. The interesting part about Henry is he slipped down this list because ultimately what happened with Julio Jones there, he takes a little bit away. So there's a little give, there's a little take. So we've got a nice, interesting note on that one for Derrick Henry. And then now we're all out of order here because I messed it up. It's totally my fault. We've got here with the Davante Adams, then he's the number 1 wide receiver on this list, number 1 wide receiver for your fantasy team as well. Davante Adams' win share comes from his volume in this pass-heavy offense with Aaron Rodgers. It's also because his opportunity for the other guys is really going to be all about, like, he draws the best defensive coverages and he comes down in those tight coverages as well.
All right, how about Alvin Kamara? Because he's that unique guy that not only carries the load as a running back, too, but he gets 90 receptions a year.
Yeah, you talk about the being multiple in both the run game and the pass catching phase of the game. There's also that third phase that's not as great for your fantasy team, but is really awesome for your overall team in terms of wins. And that's what happens when he's not the subject of a target of a pass or the ball carrier. He draws defenses in. And the really interesting part about that is it creates more space for all of the pass catchers, and it actually creates a better opportunity for, those downfield passes that we're likely to see now that Jameis Winston is under center instead of as many quick passes like we saw with Drew Brees. So spreading the field out because defenses have to keep him honest. They can't disrespect Alvin Kamara.
All right, no one disrespects Christian McCaffrey, who comes in at number 1 on this week's countdown.
Yeah. 2.29. Obviously, we have a 17-game season, but this is a monster number. Why? Because Christian McCaffrey, he gets a lot of volume. So, of course, in 2019, prior to his injury, he was on the field for the most snaps for any running back. But ultimately, he does that thing where draws in defenses and figures out kind of how to beat coverages as well. So his use, really, because he's more like if I had to do his blend of wide receiver functions versus running back functions, the wide receiver function, he actually draws coverages away, and then he can also rush in between the tackles, and then he can rush outside the tackles as well. So his multiple use case and the fact that defenses are not going to leave him alone at all. So he creates the biggest opportunity for his teammates at that running back position. That's why he's your number 1 overall fantasy pick. And it's kind of not even close. Like, the gap between 1 and 2 this season is one of the bigger gaps in fantasy that I have seen since I've started tracking.
And if he stays healthy, he's going to be worth it. Every last penny of your fantasy imaginary spendings.